everybody, welcome to 500 Open Tabs. Sarcastic. Let me try again. Hi everyone. Okay, wait. Let me do it again. So insincere.
You can do this. I believe in
I
you.
don't know how. Now I'm overthinking it. Okay. Give me a second. Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to Okay. Hey everybody, welcome to 500 Open Tabs. You do it.
No,
do
keep
it.
going. You can do it. You can do it. Okay, one more time. Just quick. Go.
Hey everybody.
Just do it. Just do
Okay.
it. Just do it.
Hey everybody, welcome to 500 Open Tabs. I'm Hannah Hillam.
And I'm Kaveh Taharian, and we made it valiantly through that introduction. Good job, Hannah. We just, we sounded like kids who were in school, who you were like, it's quiet time and you're not allowed to say anything. And you would just look at your friend. And we just did it like 6 times in a row.
I tried saying that 6 times.
6 times the charm.
Ooh. Yep. Yep. I hope that one sounded sincere, because the rest of them all sounded sarcastic.
It sounded like you were like an older sibling that came to like make fun of you and just to pretend to be like, oh, hi, I'm Hannah Hillam.
Hi.
And I'm the host of 500 Open Tabs. I'm so stupid and I smell bad.
Yeah.
But you're doing it for your own show.
I am doing it for my own show. This is how seriously I take myself as a person.
Yes, that's why we love you. That's why you're the co-host of a show watched by like tens of people, and dozens on YouTube.
All 10 of you are my favorite.
Yeah, dozen.
Well,
anyway, thanks for coming back to the show, everybody.
7th episode.
7th episode. This is going to be some. I don't know about you, but I was really I had trouble with this tab because I've slowly on each episode gotten more and more insane with my research and going over the top with it. So I was like, well, the last one was a 2-parter, which frankly should have been a 3-parter. I realize now in retrospect. But I was like, I need to do something light and like not as into. And of course, I just went. I'm going to try my best. I'm trying my best, Hannah.
So am I. That's all we can expect of each other.
That's all we can do. Yeah.
And I'm the same. I had to remind myself over and over, like, no, keep it simple. You don't have to go into every detail. No one needs to know about this world conflict. Has nothing to do with this. It just has to do with, I went deep into weird corners of everything. It sucks.
I did make a note to be like, oh, I can cut for time in my notes. So I was like, oh, I should start doing that more. It's taken me 7 episodes to realize that I should do that. But I'm like, no, everybody needs to know every single thing every single rabbit hole that I went down. Everybody should know about it.
Which would be kind of fun, but only for me to listen to, because that's
I don't even think it's fun for you to listen to, frankly. I think you'll probably yawn through the whole thing and be like, can we just get to the part where
I would never yawn through anything you say.
Ever. Anyways, do
you have anything
to update? So somebody commented on our last video or one of the shorts that we put up on YouTube and said that I looked like a tired Gael Garcia Bernal. Do you remember that actor?
You kind of do.
Which I take as a compliment, frankly.
Yeah.
Because I love that actor. I loved Motorcycle Diaries. I loved Y Tu Mama Tambien. I loved all of his movies. I haven't, frankly, admittedly, I haven't watched like his more recent stuff. But there was a period where he was like the it guy from as Mexican actors are concerned, and he was great. So he's a handsome guy. I was like, I'll take it. The tired part of it cracked me up because I was
it's accurate.
Yeah, I am tired all the time. But now we have to figure out who your celebrity lookalike is now, since we've figured out that it's Adele. Okay, I could see that.
Everyone says I look like Adele after she lost weight. Like 3 or 4 people have said that. They're like, you look like Adele, but Adele now. And I'm like, I would have been fine with Adele before.
How is your singing voice? Can you sing like Adele?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No.
Well, we're going to get there.
If I hadn't have done band in high school and practiced to the point of understanding how to like match a tune. I'd be tone deaf.
Interesting.
Yeah. What about you?
Well,
Can you
there's
sing?
hope. I can. I mean, I can. It's physically possible for me to sing, and I do sing, but I wouldn't say that I'm a singer. I'm certainly not Adele.
I think I
tend to
look
have
like
a.
I just completely stopped you in your tracks because I was still on the Adele thing. Please keep talking.
No. What were you going to say about the Adele thing?
I went right back. I turned around. I think I just look like Adele because everybody from like British descent looks like this.
Yeah, we just got to get you like that caked on makeup because she wears quite a lot. So once we get you that and then your hair like done and pulled back like into a big thing, it's sort of like a, what do they call it? It's not like a beehive anymore. I guess that was older Adele. Anyway, this is not fascinating for people who are tuning into this podcast, unfortunately. But for us, it's great. Anyway, all
what
this
else
is
do you
say,
got?
Yeah, nothing. So we're
cool.
Just welcome back to the 500 Open Tabs podcast hosted by Adele, by post-weight loss Adele and tired Gael Garcia Bernal.
I do want to finish hearing what you were saying about being able to sing because I completely interrupted you.
Oh, it doesn't. I just was saying I sing in a low range and I can sing, but I'm not like a singer.
You have baritone?
I don't know. Sure.
Oh my gosh. You just got done with a podcast about musicals and you don't know?
Listen, all I learned was I don't want to watch any more musicals, but thank you. It was a good ride. It was a fun ride at the time.
Yeah. This time, I'm going to be talking about a tab that I've had open for about a year, judging by its surrounding tabs. And it's funny because this is one of those tabs that I've kind of always had. I've always ended up going to for some reason or another and never actually reading through it. So finally, I decided to look through it. And this tab is called... I was going to say,
more like, just like every one of the tabs that we have, which is the entire premise of this show. Yes.
Well, do you ever
for some reason, this one's really weird.
Do you ever have the thing where you're like, oh, I got to look that up, and you type it in, and then you already have a tab open for it?
Yeah, I've had exact links that I've opened up before. Yes.
This is one of those, but like 5 or 6 times. So
okay,
this is the Wikipedia list of people who have lived in airports.
Okay.
Now, yeah, have you ever had to spend the night in an airport?
Unfortunately, yes. It's not great. I think the last time I did it was Chicago O'Hare. I don't remember. I think I was flying to Michigan, and then there was some storm, and then they like pulled it. Which Chicago O'Hare, like, it happens all the time where flights get canceled, especially in the wintertime. So they pulled out these cots and like had us like sleeping in these cots. It was crazy. I was like, I mean, it was like a weird thing in the airport that I was sleeping at, and I was like, this looks like a refugee camp. Like, this is so crazy. Like, I've never seen anything like this before.
You're not far from the truth. Like, that's, especially O'Hare, they have a lot of lodgings for, they have a lot of, like,
I got to experience
resources. Yeah. Whoa.
Yeah, that was the last time I think it happened, though. But I'm sorry, continue.
No, I've stayed in an airport. The last time I had to stay in an airport was the night of the Dark Knight Rises shooting. Was that what it was?
Oh, shit. Yeah.
I was in Denver.
Oh, my God. Denver you were there.
Yeah.
At the Denver airport?
Yes.
That's
I was
even
sleeping.
more like Illuminati. Like,
I know. And here's the thing. I got shuffled because don't ever fly Frontier, first of all. They were like, we don't have flights. Yeah, it sucks. Anyway, they were like, you got to stay over and we don't have any flights tomorrow. So I was like, oh, fine. Put me on a United flight. And sometime in the middle of the night, when that guy was shooting up that theater, they stole everything out of my bag. And everything but my clothes. So, I don't know, somebody.
Oh my God.
in baggage area. Like, somehow it made it from Frontier to United over the night, and they took everything. And
oh my God.
Oh yeah, that was a weird night.
That's in more ways than one. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's cursed.
I remember like seeing the news and being like, what? I'm just sleeping on the floor. Yeah. Anyway, that was the last time I slept in an airport. Point is, people do this all the time. And some people just end up staying forever, as long as they can. And have you ever seen, I shouldn't even ask this because I know the answer. Have you seen The Terminal?
Actually, I have not.
Weird.
Funny enough, yeah. I actually never saw that movie. I remember it. I do know, I'm assuming that you're going to talk about it. I did do like a tab dive randomly, like a little bit about this a few years ago. Because I was like, what's that? And it's like, oh, he's one of my people.
He is one of your people. Only you can say that, I've decided.
Yes.
Anyway, so yeah, The Terminal was actually based on somebody. And before we get into who and who these people are and why they're in the airport. Um, let's talk about why airports and why is this even allowed? Like, because I was thinking, like, how are they not getting kicked out? And
yeah, very strange.
do you remember when Edward Snowden was living at the Moscow airport for like 40 days back before he was? Yeah. So I always thought that it was like international waters. Like, oh, once you're in the airport, you're safe. But that's not true. Apparently, the country you're in can decide to extract you at any moment. They decided not to.
Yeah. Okay.
And
so they're just like, we don't, because I guess I understand it's like, it becomes like this potential tricky political situation where they're like, if they do extract you or don't extract you. Yeah.
And so Edward Snowden was able to stay there until Moscow finally approved his visa. And it's weird because a lot of times people kind of get stuck in these like not holding areas. That sounds dehumanizing. It's like a weird limbo. Like, so a lot of people, like, their passport is revoked and they find it out when they're at customs and they're like, you can't come in here, and they can't go back. So they just have to sit in this like in between area for whoever. Oh yeah. Awful. And that happens a lot where people are like, my papers got mixed up, or, oh, I don't know why they're not letting me in, or, oh, I'm a criminal. And they found out. I read a bunch.
So unfortunate for them.
I know. They try and try and try.
When are they going to catch a break?
So I ended up reading a bunch of stuff on international law and asylum law, and I got deep in the weeds with it. And all I have to say
now
is
you're a lawyer.
I'm a lawyer. I'm actually taking clients right now. So if you're at an airport, call me. I will read you tabs. I'll slowly read through.
That's your service. I'll charge you $300. That's the best billboard I've ever seen. Yeah. There's like all the ones of like accidents and stuff, but you're like, I will read your tabs for $300 an hour. I provide no services beyond that.
While you languish in an airport.
Yes. But I'll read them to you.
I will, and you're gonna hate it. So there's this professor of international law named Antonio Ramirez, and he says that almost everything is up to like the country that you're in, except for diplomatic missions of third countries due to bilateral agreements. So if there's some like thing going on, like say the US and Russia are both doing something in Spain. Spain is like, no, hands off. I guess that's how I understand it. Doesn't matter. Anyway,
spoken like a true lawyer. This law is not that important.
Doesn't matter. So these places are called transit areas, and they're kind of like the limbo between getting off the plane and going through customs. And every airport, and every international airport has them. So it's complicated. So
that's like the international waters sort of part of the airport that's specifically designated for that.
And if they wanted, they could go in and get you.
Chamber, like when they go to space and there's like the little in-between area before you come into the main cabin.
Yeah. Where they have to like get the oxygen in there or whatever.
Yeah. Or like spray down with whatever so they don't bring you like whatever outside diseases from Mars back into the colony. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, continue.
No, it's kind of exactly how it is. By the way, look at me. I printed it off this time.
Beautiful. We're analog people, though. That's because we grew up on writing on paper and stuff like that. We're not as digital as we might see. We're not the tech aficionados we come across as.
Oh, no, not at all. I did learn how to write and draw analog first. Anyway, so if let's say somebody gets off the plane in Spain. I'm saying Spain because this article is from a Spanish newspaper. They get off the plane in Spain. You're right. What's that rhyme from? What musical is that? My Fair Lady?
I don't know. I've never seen a musical in my life. I have no idea.
Useless.
Train in Vain is the only song I remember.
The rain
in Spain is
falls
very plain.
Mainly on the plane. Train in vain. Great. We're playing word association now. So,
so you're getting off the plane in Spain and it's raining.
And they're like, oh, you don't have your papers. Sorry. Or you claim asylum. And they're like, absolutely not. And so you just have to get back on a plane and go to anywhere else and try again. So that's kind of how you see these people trying to find asylum places. They just airport hop.
Let me ask you this. You might not know the answer to this. I'm curious. If you're like, you're seeking asylum, like you said, like you show up in Spain and you're like, well, guess I now have to fly to France. Yeah. For example, do they just put you on another plane, or they're like, sorry, it's going to cost you like $3,000 to fly to France now because all the flights are booked? And if you're like, I don't have $3,000, are you hosed? Like, how does that work? Do you have to do like a GoFundMe campaign to go from Spain to France?
I know there was a German guy who had a GoFundMe campaign to get him back home from an
Hmm.
airport, but he was just not he wasn't like trying to seek asylum. I actually don't
Yeah.
know. That's a good question.
Yeah. Okay.
Um, if anyone knows,
If anyone knows, let us know in the comments or in
any
the Discord.
international lawyers like
Of
myself.
which there are many that listen to this podcast, especially now.
So yeah, it's complicated, but for the most part, airports don't have any rules against sleeping or staying in the airport. They don't have like a time limit. Um, so even if you're not in that special limbo customs, you can still just go in the airport and sleep there. And so that's led to many unhoused people, especially in colder climates, like O'Hare, Chicago O'Hare Airport. They've ended up taking refuge in the airport and sleeping there in the winter, and they kind of can't do anything about it. So some of the reasons why people live in airports is migrants seeking
Mhm.
asylum,
Yeah.
homelessness, political asylum. I already said that. Cool. Deportation. So if they're being deported,
Yeah.
sometimes they get stuck in that limbo as well, where it's like, you don't have your documents for your country you came from, and we're trying to get you out of here. So where are
What
we
a
going to take
mess.
you?
Ugh.
Oh, it
It's
truly
so
is. Like,
awful.
it's imagine. Oh, mental illness is actually a big one. A lot of people just want to live in the airport, or they're running from something, like family,
Yeah.
like
Or
home
yeah.
life.
They're fleeing something. Yeah.
They're oh yeah, I'll talk about one of these people who's fleeing a government and ends up, yeah, you'll hear about it. But and
Okay.
also they just feel like it. A lot of these guys just were like, I'm gonna live in the airport now, which
They're for fun.
for fun, yeah. Here we're gonna get in to the notable people. There's a big list on Wikipedia, and I picked out the ones that you may have heard of already or that seemed interesting to me. So
We love it. Okay.
the
Yeah.
first,
Let's hear them.
the first one is Mehran. Did I say
Mhm.
it right?
Yeah.
Karimi Nasri, and he's an Iranian, and this is what the movie The Terminal and Lost in Transit were both based on, his story. So Nasri, he's an Iranian refugee who lived
Mhm.
in the Charles de Gaulle. I don't know how to say French words.
Yeah. Charles de Gaulle. Yeah.
Okay,
He's
you
a very
speak some
famous
French.
French general. Yeah. That's like one of the
Oh.
main. It's Charles de Gaulle and it's Orly are the two airports in France.
Oh, okay. Well,
Or I'm sorry, around Paris, not France. I
yeah,
mean, yes,
well,
Paris is in France, but specifically that city, yes.
he lived in this airport for 17 years.
Jesus Christ.
So
These are
here's
terrible airports, by the way. I've been to them. They're so
The-
bad. I hate that airport.
Really?
Oh, God.
I've only been to Paris by train.
That's the only way to go. Charles de Gaulle. It's like so many Listen, I hate most airports. I
They're
have
horrible.
strong feelings about. This isn't
Yeah.
like some American thing where I'm like, oh, I don't like the French airport. I will like.
No, it's all of them.
LAX can die. I hate that
Oh, yeah.
airport more than anything.
I'll never fly in there again. Burbank
Ugh.
every time.
Awful. No, don't fly Burbank. Burbank's not a good
Why?
option. No one should fly into Burbank because if anyone, it's like a cool kid thing. If they know about Burbank, then they'll fly. Don't fly into
Yeah,
Burbank.
there is
It's
no
closed
airport
forever.
in Burbank.
Closed forever.
They just closed it down last week. Too bad.
Yeah.
But this
Heathrow's
guy-
terrible. They're all awful. I hate most airports.
You know which one I actually liked a lot was Amsterdam. It was very clean and tidy and neat and
That's cool.
kind and
That's
pink.
nice. Pink. Love it.
It was
Millennial
like a weird
pink.
pink. It kind of was.
Cool.
Anyway, it's kind of hard to pin down Nasri's actual story because he says he was born to an Iranian father and a Scottish mother, but
Okay.
there's no proof of the Scottish mother. And then he also says a Swedish mother, also no proof. So chances are he was just born to an Iranian couple in
Probably.
who they worked on the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. So they had ties to England, and so he was able to go to school in England in 1973. He claims he was kicked out of Iran in 1977 for protesting against the Shah, but this is disputed because there's no record of him ever having been kicked out of Iran. And he tries to get refugee status in Belgium by saying, like, I have a Scottish mother, I'm kind of European, but it's hazy and there is no record of it. And at one point he says his briefcase was stolen, which had all of his papers in it. And he was unable to fly back to the UK because he wanted to go to the UK. He was like, I'm leaving. I want out of Iran. I want to go to the UK.
I'm British now.
Though that's literally what he said.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm British. My name is Alfred."
I have to get back to Bruce Wayne.
Sir Alfred.
I'm Batman's butler. He will not be able to be Batman if I don't show up.
British Batman's butler. British Batman's butler. That should be one of those Rain in Spain things.
You've had you've had like 4 of those in the past 24 hours too. What did you texted me something last night that was absurd like that? It was all those T's in a row.
T's. I don't remember, but it was poetic, and I thought maybe I'd wake up still poetic, and it turns out I kind of did. Anyway,
you are, yeah. So he's got to get back to Wayne Manor in England.
Wine Manor.
Wine Manor. Master Wayne, I'm trying to get back to you from Iran. There's all
they
these
would say
thieves.
Iran.
Yeah, Iran. But I had to go through Belgium first.
Michael Caine.
Keep going.
Anyway, so he can't fly to the UK because he doesn't have his papers. And so he gets on a ferry and he's like, I'll take a boat to the UK. And when he gets there, they were like, you don't have any identification. And he's like, I'm British. My name is Alfred.
Yeah.
And he's like, they think he mailed his papers to Belgium for some reason. Anyway, there's no identification. So they send him back to France, where he came from, because that was like where he took the ferry
Flew in originally. Okay.
Yeah. And he was unable to establish any identity or refugee status in France. And so they just detained him in the waiting area. So that little like in-between place. And he ends up staying in this airport for 17 years. Not because he couldn't get out. Belgium was like, we'll give you asylum. You just need to, live under a social worker's watch. And he's like, absolutely not.
That's
staying in the
most
airport.
Persian thing I can think of. Just being like, I will not bow down to anyone. You shut up. I will be the person in charge of what you do. We are stubborn people. None of this is surprising to me.
Never would have known.
Honestly, he's right. Why does he need to live under someone else's watch?
Because I don't know.
There's no reason. It's racist. Everyone's racist. That's
why.
It
is. Anyway, they offered and he's like, no, I'm staying in the airport. He's pretty much said UK or nothing. And France even was like, we'll give you papers, we'll give you asylum. But on the papers, they listed him as being fully Iranian. And he was like, I'm half British. So I'm not signing those. I'm not leaving. I'm not living here. So
he's very much into England. It's funny. This is the first super pro England thing that we have on our podcast.
Yeah. Weird.
Or at least this guy is very pro England.
He loves England. Oh, England's pretty cool.
Cool. Yeah. I like England.
Visit.
Yeah.
No, I do too. Anyway, so they ask his family, they're like, what do we do? And they're like, I think he's living the life he wants to live. And so they just let him live there. And he spends
his days. He's not hurting anybody. He's just hanging out.
He spends his days journaling, sitting at the bar, eating McDonald's, smoking a pipe, meditating until he's in a trance, and listening to the radio.
Dude, this sounds bro as shit. This is kind of yeah.
He lives on a bench. Like he has his whole setup on a bench. Sleeps on a bench. And finally he gets sick in 2006 and they're like, you have to go to the hospital.
To the hospital. Oh.
And so they take him to the hospital because he was going to die. And then after that, he was transferred to a shelter in Paris. They're like, anyway, just don't go back to the airport. Now, fast forward to 2022, last year, 2 years ago. He goes back to the airport to live. He's like, I'm sick of this shelter. I'm sick of France. I'm going to go back to my airport and live there. And he stays there for 2 months and then ends up having a heart attack and dying in the airport.
He died as he lived in the airport.
In the airport. So that's one guy. And we'll put pictures of him up. He looks haunted.
Yeah, I think living in an airport for 17 years, trying to escape a country that you came from that just collapsed, and then
completely
trying to come
collapsed.
up with. Look, as a sidebar, right? I'll just talk about this. Is like there's a generation of people that came out of Iran, like after the revolution and during the revolution, who are just like scarred, and just none of them have gone to therapy, and like none of them have like they've all just been. I can tell you this firsthand. Like
personal experience.
Like, personal experience. They're just like, nope, that's not a problem. We don't have trauma. No, that's not a thing. We're just push it down. And it just comes at an insane way. I mean, this guy might have very well been mentally ill in some way. Who knows? But I just mean that, like,
doesn't matter. He was probably traumatized.
Right. I'm just like, who the hell knows what this guy's life was like, that he was like, I'm British now. Like, I need to disassociate as a way to, like, escape this horrific shit I may or may not have seen. Or he might have been, I don't know.
Well, when the country fell, like when the government fell, it was violent and bloody and
very
drawn
much so,
out.
yeah.
And
yeah,
every single person, I shouldn't be Persian splaining to you, but as you know, it wasn't just some like coup. It was a destruction of an entire society.
This was not a January 6th situation. This was like
This was like, we're gonna murder people in the streets, and then
and they did pour acid on their faces. People are just constantly getting murdered, and like it got crazy. Yeah,
you either escape or you fall in line.
Yeah, and it still is.
Yeah. So
anyway,
yeah.
Yes, you never know what someone's going through, even if they're living at the airport. You don't understand what they're experiencing on the inside. What's going on up here?
What regime they just were. Anyway, so it's funny because I noticed that it's a trend among Iranians to live in airports because.
Oh, really?
Yes. There are a lot of Iranians who live in airports, but simply because of this. Like, was it 1978?
79 is officially when the I mean, it was bubbling up for years before it, but 79 is the year that it officially is declared when Khomeini returns.
Okay. Oh. So when the revolution happened in Iran, a lot of people tried to leave, or before it happened, they were like, saw the writing on the wall and were like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And there's several on this list that you should go read about for sure, but I couldn't cover them all. But one of them, and I'm going to need help with this name. It's Zahra Kamalfar. Kamal.
Oh, you texted me. Yeah. Zahra. Zahra, yeah. Like Zara, like the place that you go shopping for clothes. Zara?
I would never shop there.
Zahra. It sounds like Zahramar, which means snake poison, which is what you say. What your parents yell at you when they're like getting mad at you. Don't even ask.
Snake poison?
Snake poison. Zahramar.
Whoa.
It's cool. Wow. I don't even know. I don't know how to translate the context of it. It's like anyway, this is totally unrelated.
No, I get it. But, I love this. Are you kidding?
But Zahra, go ahead.
It's like in Latino culture where they throw shoes.
Oh, they do. Yeah, that's most
is that
countries.
Also?
Oh, yeah, for sure in the Middle East. So you get hit in the shoe or whatever. Yeah.
Okay. See, we just don't talk ever or address our problems.
Yeah, you just don't address the problem that never happened.
And then it just goes inward, and then for some reason, all the mass shooters are white.
It gets solved. It dissolves away. It fixes itself.
What does Marge Simpson say in that one episode where her mom teaches her to like push it all down to her feet and walk around on it all day?
Now let's never speak of this again. So Zahra,
she was a political activist, and she fled Iran after her husband was executed while in custody. So they arrested, and they were activists together, and she caught word that they killed him in prison, and she was like, nope, we have kids, I'm out of here. So she and her 2 kids lived in a Russian airport for 9 months, and it was harrowing because they weren't in the area of the airport where they could like buy food and get water. So it was like their teeth were rotting, they didn't have toothbrushes, they were miserable. It was horrible. They had to sometimes drink toilet water. Yeah, and Russia's not like known for
it's not that like Brita filtered toilet water that we have here in the States. It's like
I love that. Anyway, they had no extra clothes, no toothbrushes. It was really hard. So finally Canada was like, yeah, we'll take you, duh. And so she finally gets to move to Canada to live with her brother. So everything's good. Those kids are fine. But
what year is this again, you said, for her?
Wish I knew. I think it was in the 70s.
But it was around the revolutionary time, though. It was around 79.
It may have been later. Okay. Wish I would have written it down, but I didn't. So too bad.
I know I've heard quite a lot of these kinds of stories just through family and extended family and friends.
Right.
I'm not at liberty to share some of these stories because they're not mine. But I have heard of one or two.
I want to hear.
Yeah, I'll explain them to you. Yeah.
That's incredible.
It's weird. It's like these are the kinds of stories I grew up with to an extent too. You're just sort of like,
really,
this is the kind of shit that we had to go through to get here.
Like you have like an aunt who just drops the most traumatizing thing in the world.
Oh, just casually.
Conversation. Yeah. And then you're like, what?
Yeah.
But then it's like no big deal. That kind of thing.
Or it depends on who you're in a fight with at that time. But people want to pull it out of their back pocket.
No. So
anyway, no such thing as past trauma. Continue.
No, it all goes away the second you live in the airport. So another guy was named Feng Zhen. Let's see if my high school Chinese can serve me. Feng Zhen Hu. Okay. He's an economist and scholar from China, and he's also a human rights defender. So he was imprisoned unjustly for quote unquote illegal business activity. The government had no reason to imprison him; they just made that up. And after that,
I wish they would do that here to like put certain people into jail for illegal business activity. I can think of at least 5 people.
They do, but they're all just minorities, and they didn't do anything.
Not those ones. I'm talking about the ones that we actually want to go to jail for doing
like
illegal business activity. Yeah. Former president.
If only. Former president, you're right. Feng, he gets pissed off because he's like, you imprisoned me for no reason. I'm going to start writing about this. I'm going to start, defending myself. And he starts publishing this magazine called the Supervision Bulletin. And it pretty much just details all the illegal stuff the government does.
Hell yes.
Yeah, right? And the government was like, we don't like that. So while he was
can you just stop?
Please stop. While he was in China, he went to Japan to get medical treatment, and while there, they were like, "You're not coming back in," and so he gets stuck at.
Fine by me.
No, seriously. Well, he wants to get back in because he's like, my whole life is there.
Yeah.
He stayed in the Narita airport for 86 days until China finally let him back in. But he gets back to China, and they're like, under house arrest, and he's still under house arrest. This was in 2009.
Crap. Oh my God.
Yeah, and they treat him terribly. He's not allowed medical care, so he's just kind of hoping
trapped
he's
in his house.
That's it.
It's
awful.
This can't leave. Can't even get to go to the doctor or anything.
Worse than the airport. Another person that I thought was interesting was I did not look up how to pronounce this, but it's Turkish. Bayram Tepeli. It's gonna be wrong. Tepeli, he lived in the Istanbul airport for, are you ready for this?
Oh, God.
27 years.
Oh, my God.
And his story is interesting because he claims he ran away from home and the problems at home and got a job at the airport. He was like a cleaner, like a janitor at the airport, and he would sleep there. And then he got sick and lost his job and just didn't leave the airport. He just was like, this is my home now.
That's sad.
Yeah. He's very mentally ill, I think, is what they said.
Oh, okay.
The airport closed in 2019, and he moved to a different airport. He's still there.
That's commitment.
I know. He's lived in an airport for the last 30-something years.
So do you have to... Okay, but he's Turkish, so he's a citizen there. So it's like he's not there for asylum necessarily. So he's just... So how do you do you have to buy a ticket to get into a certain area past security? And then you're in the airport? He worked
there and he just didn't leave.
Well, you said he just lost his job, right? And then he was still just living there. He didn't leave. But then in the new airport, I'm saying, does he go, is he just living on the outside area, where people go to wait for people to arrive? Or is he inside the airport?
Good question. I don't know.
I wonder. I
know.
wonder if do you have people, is there a battle between people who live on the outside of security and on the inside of security? Are there rivalries? Do the people on the inside of security think that they're better than the people on the outside?
Probably. They have McDonald's.
Do asylum
and
people
stuff.
think they're cooler than the people who are there for personal reasons who live? I need to know about the hierarchy of
I do too now.
The social hierarchy of how it works.
You know what?
Is this a reality show we need to make right now of
Yes. Yes. I would watch that. I would watch that. I would love that. What would we call it?
You heard it first. Airport drama. I don't know. The Real House. The real. No, not Housewives, but
the real passengers of Istanbul Airport. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
That sounds insane. Okay, so here's another thing that was interesting is that COVID-19 happened, and this caused a ton of issues. I had wondered about this at the time, what happens when you're in the airport and the world shuts down?
Oh yeah.
Do you go home? No, you don't.
The airport is your home.
Yeah, this German guy, Edward Ziebart, he was on his way home from India, and on March 18th, 2020, they closed everything down. And he was at this airport. They canceled his flight, and he was like, okay. And he stays there for 55 days. because there's no way to get home. Like, it's in lockdown. He spent lockdown in the airport.
That might be the worst. What do you, because people aren't like serving food. Yeah. Like, what do you do for 55 days? How do you eat?
I think they gave him food. Like, I think it was one of those things where it's like, well, it's better for you here, I guess. Like, I don't know. And if you remember, India was one of the countries that was like spiking early. So it was really scary. Yeah. And he was scared to leave. He was like, I don't want to leave. And he was worried that he'd get arrested, which he did. And then they were like, never mind, you're fine.
They're like, you're not hurting anyone here. You're just hanging out.
Yeah. Same in 2020, an Indian man, Aditya Singh, I hope that's right. He lived in the O'Hare airport for 90 days in 2020 because he was just downright terrified of getting COVID, because it was still in that weird part of COVID where we were like, it was like, you remember in the fall and winter of 2020, it was just death.
Yeah.
Just so many people dying.
Spring. And, I mean, I will personally say, like, the level of, this is the same for everybody, but like some people who are more on the anxiety end of the spectrum was like, it was bad. It was bad. It was
not me. Good. I'm not on that spectrum.
Yes, you were fine. You were like, I'm just gonna go around. Let's just cough on each other.
I didn't go insane or get on a new medication or anything for any reason. But yeah, so he was just like, I'm too scared to leave, understandably. And he was arrested. Finally, they were like, arrested him for some reason in 2021, and then they just cleared him of charges because they're like, you didn't do anything. Times are weird, you know? Yeah. I'm almost done. So there are still people living in airports right now as we speak.
Mm-hmm. As we speak, yeah.
A man named Dennis Luis de Souza. He's Brazilian. He's been living in the Sao Paulo airport for 24 years.
Wow.
And yeah, he had a rough home life, and he just decided to stay in the airport. And he does suffer from psychological issues, and he comes out, walks around outside sometimes, and everyone just kind of seems like they just let him be, which is kind of cool.
What's his name again?
Dennis Luis de Souza.
Dennis. They're just like, hey, Dennis, how you doing? Nice to see you.
Dennis, and he's like,
that's our boy Dennis. He's just chilling. He's fine.
For 24 years, which is crazy because he started living in that airport in 2000. So he probably watched the airport go from
which 9/11 happened as he was in the airport.
He probably watched like TSA be created and all this stuff happen. And
that's an interesting thing to think about. Yeah.
Then we've got Wei Jianguo, which he has been living in the Beijing Capital Airport for 16 years. And his reason, this is my favorite guy. He said, quote, "I wanted to smoke and drink without my family bothering me."
Dad core.
Legend. And then he also added that he couldn't find work. So
there's also that.
But he lives in this airport.
I was gonna say, I like how many of these people are just like, we're not talking like short stints. Like there's a couple in there, but there's so many people that are like
years.
Over 1 to 2 decades. Not even years, just decades. That's a lot of people.
That's a long time. That's a long time to live in an airport.
Man.
Wow. That's like me. I moved into an airport when I was 10, and I still live there.
That's still crazy. Would be there from the time you were 10 years old. Unreal.
But he comes out every once in a while because he is a Chinese citizen and it's in Beijing. But he does live and sleep at the airport. And then this other one, Lisa Lee Wink, she's been living in Cancun since April 2023, and she won't say her reason. So that's all.
She loves Cancun.
She loves the Cancun
like,
airport.
People are trying to vacation here all the time. I'm just going to live here. What do you want from me?
And that's all there's a bunch more. So go, I'm going to enable everybody to open some tabs, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
If you had to live in an airport, which one?
Oh, that's a terrible question. Oh, I hate them all. I don't know. They're all the worst.
I'd live in San Francisco.
San Francisco's SFO's a pretty nice airport.
Yeah.
I haven't been to Oakland in forever. I used to fly into
still
Oakland.
Not good.
When I was I remember Oakland being okay.
I just didn't like how
Seattle
far away
have like
it
a
was.
nice airport? I feel like Seattle's airport's kind of nice, no?
It's an airport.
JFK,
No.
I don't know. I mean,
I would live in the Kauai airport. in Hawaii. Have you been to that airport?
I have not. I've only been to the Big Island. That's the only part of Hawaii I've ever been to. Is it beautiful? That sounds good.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, like a tropical paradise airport.
Yeah.
Are we still going in and out of the airport, or are we just living in the airport? Because that could also backfire and be like, great, I'm trapped in this airport where there's all this beautiful Hawaiian landscape like right outside this window. I feel like that would be worse.
I think you could leave.
I'd want it to be terrible outside so that I'm like, no, like if you're somewhere cold or like terrible or there's nothing there or like arid, you could just be like, I'm better off on the inside where there's like air conditioning or something.
Right.
And I'm like, this is great. I don't want to go outside.
Well, Chicago has cots, so.
Yeah, that's true. And I've already stayed there before. I've already given it a 2-star review on Yelp when I stayed there years ago.
Back when Yelp reviews were way more common.
Listen, for some of us, we never stopped. We still use Yelp.
Really? Wow.
Oh, it's the most old person thing I use. Yeah.
I do too. Anyway, that's my tab.
Beautiful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, each story was like more upsetting than the last.
I know. Yeah. Nobody's in there because they're well.
Yeah. Nobody's stoked to be living in an airport.
And if they want to live there, it's because they are unwell. Like that's anyway. What do you have for me?
If you have a friend living in an airport, check in on them. Make sure that they're okay. You obviously like learning about random stuff, which is why you're listening to this podcast. So do Hannah and I a favor and please head over to nebula.tv/500opentabs and sign up for Nebula. There you can check out exclusives from creators like Epos Vox, such as Home Video. Remember those home movies your family recorded and kept in boxes? They might not have seemed all that important at the time, but they represent one of the most important milestones in making social media and live streaming possible today. Epos Vox takes a look at the advent of the camcorder and how those home movies paved the way for the videos you watch every day. My family didn't take much video of us growing up, probably because they knew I was going to grow up to be a gigantic star. Of podcasting? I don't know. I guess it's time to make an appointment with the old therapist and try and unpack this. You can find Home Video and dozens of other high production originals on Nebula, a video streaming platform built by and for creators. And along with videos and podcasts, you can now learn new skills in Nebula's fully produced classes. Right now, when you head to nebula.tv/500opentabs, you get 40% off an annual subscription. By signing up, you can support other creators like Todd in the Shadows, Princess Weeks, and many more. But most importantly, if you love Hannah and I and want us to keep making episodes, you got to go to nebula.tv/500opentabs and sign up. Help us, Obi-Wan's Kenobi. You're our only hopes. Okay, so my tab is, I say this all the time, it's really dumb, but it's fun. So we're going to do the best we can. So I don't even know how I found this. It's not that random of a tab to start with, but I had started something else and I looked at like 14 other things. And then I just came across this one. And then I was like, okay, well, this is fun. So I didn't actually have this specific tab open like amongst some of my other tabs. I found it by doing a different dive. If that makes sense.
Yep. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
So, and I think I might have mentioned this on a previous episode, but it's fun. The longer we do this, the more I'm like, oh, okay, like certain tabs don't work for this. Yeah. And then it's sort of, it's training me to be like, okay, well, this could work better as a tab for the show as opposed to something else where there's only like a half tab or something.
Or there's like one little instance within that that you can go off on. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this one, it's an article from the Washington Post and it's written by Michael Ruane, and it's titled, sorry, Michael.
What's the guy we always say?
Sam Worrell. It's written by Sam Worrell. He's writing for the Washington Post now. Dead. He's an excellent journalist. And the article is titled, "A Chinese Cigarette Tin Launched DC's 50-Year Love Affair with Pandas." What?
Sorry, that's just a lot of words together.
It's a lot of words. Okay. I'm going to tell you the story. So there's a...
Okay, tell me.
So Richard Nixon, you've heard of him? He's famous for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the first people that think of when they think of Richard Nixon, what he's famous for, it's like his intense sexual charisma.
Yep.
And the other thing he also did was...
in general.
Period. Yeah. And his sexuality.
His looks.
But he... his laid back nature.
Yeah.
But he also opens up relations with China, right? That's probably the most famous, or sorry, actually not the most famous, but the most important thing he did while he was president. That's arguably like a lot of historians say.
Idea.
You didn't know this?
No, because it's all overshadowed by his crimes.
Sure, right. Oh my God, that's so funny. Okay, yeah, no, Nixon.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's one of those things where I realize now there's some stuff where it's not so much that I'm like, you didn't know this. It's more like, how did you miss that? Like, how is that possible to have avoided it?
The answer is always the U.S. school system. That's how I missed it.
So Richard Nixon opened up relations with China in the 70s. Him and Henry Kissinger very famously did this. I was not prepared to go into this, but I'll give you the quickest of primers that I can. At that time, so Kissinger, rest in piss, he...
You know what, though? You're going to run out of piss. Yeah,
that's true. There's not nearly enough piss to piss on that man's grave. Anyway, realpolitik was the sort of philosophy that they had that Kissinger famously brings to the U.S. And it's basically about like political pragmatism, about being like, okay, just look at it for what it is rather than ideology that you might have had like previously that's attached to your country's, identity and nationalism. Who cares?
Wow.
So they come up with this plan where they're like, okay, well, the Chinese are not quite opened up to the West yet. I mean, they're not opened up at all. They had gone through the communist revolution and they're still kind of like, they're creeping along, and the Russians are a big threat in the Cold War, and so Nixon and Kissinger come up with this plan where they're like, well, we should open up relations with China because no one would ever expect us to do so. And of course, Nixon's like they're extremely anti-communist and China's communist, and it's sort of this weird, insane, kind of bizarre moment in history that the Chinese are like, yeah, sure, come on in, let's do this, let's figure it out.
You know what? I
What's
did
that?
know this.
You did know it, okay.
Because I know I've mentioned it before, but my grandpa was a political scientist and an international relations guy, and he was in China a lot in the 70s doing
way.
Diplomat stuff.
Diplomatic stuff, yeah.
It's more like educational, like outreach and stuff, and had like partner universities, and he would go over there for like my dad lived in Taiwan when he was little and stuff like that.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, so did I, but I was 1. I don't remember it.
You never told me that.
Yeah. You didn't know that?
Are you an American citizen, Hannah, or are you a foreigner?
I moved to Taiwan soon after I was born, so I'm a citizen.
Wow.
But my family has a lot of ties. I did. Can you believe that? A 1-year-old stuck at the airport eating McDonald's.
Yeah.
Anyway, but yeah, I did know that because because my grandpa, he does a lot of China stuff.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Anyway. All right. So you did know some of it. Anyway,
I did kind of know that. Now that you're saying this, I'm like, oh, yeah. Okay, go on.
So Nixon famously opens up relations to China for the reasons I just explained. So him and his posse, they arrive in China. I think the first day of it is February 21st, 1972. And it's this like huge historic thing. There's like, there's press everywhere. There's cameras. They're doing like photo ops and making stops everywhere and like smiling and being like, oh my God, look at how great it is.
Kissing babies.
Like, kissing babies, like doing that whole thing. And that first night that they're there, they have this banquet in Beijing. And, it's this really nice banquet. They pull out all the stops. They have nice foods or servers, all this kind of stuff. And they seat Pat Nixon, who is Richard Nixon's wife, next to the Chinese premier, Zhou Enlai, who I hope I pronounced that correctly, who's who's sort of like the second in command of the country. I think Mao is still around at this point. So they're sitting next to each other. Dinner begins, whatever. People are like having food. They're chilling. They're chit-chatting. And on the table in front of Pat Nixon is this small tin of Chinese cigarettes. And on it, there's a logo of 2 giant pandas. And she's looking at it and she's sort of like, oh, aren't they cute? I love them. Like she's sort of pointing at the tin. And Anlai is like, well, I'll give you some. And she's
pandas?
No, she's like, cigarettes? But then he's like, no, pandas, I'll give you a couple. And she's like, what? Okay, thanks. Like, sure, why not? So she's sort of like, okay, I don't know. Right. And Richard Nixon's probably in the corner being like, great. All she does is adopt animals. This is another couple of things, and I'm going to have to clean up its shit and take care of its food bowl. And
I just pictured Richard
angry.
Nixon grumpily cleaning up big piles of panda poo. You just spouting off slurs because that's all he did in those tapes.
That's all he did was like, really, Pat? More animals into the house?
That's a good Richard Nixon.
Thank you. You'll get many more of them. So,
good.
Anyway, China at this point, so this is a term called animal diplomacy that's been around for a long time. So China had sort of gifted pandas before, like over hundreds of years to different countries. A lot of other countries have practiced, like Egypt practiced it, like all these different things. But China's the famous one that everyone thinks about now when they think about panda diplomacy. They call it panda diplomacy is the term.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. And so one of the reasons why it became a thing at that point was there was an absence of bears from pre-communist iconography. And so at that point, they were sort of seen as like this neutral animal that could now represent communist China moving forward. It didn't have any baggage attached to it.
Oh, interesting.
So, and at that point, they had given a couple of pandas. I think they had given some pandas like to Russia and like maybe North Korea. I can't remember who I didn't quite track the timeline of every single one, but other people had them. But the fact that they were going to give them to the United States was a big deal. Yeah. And so a couple months, it's like a month later, 2 giant pandas arrived and were transported to Smithsonian's National Zoo in Washington, D.C.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so there had been bids for different zoos, like San Diego Zoo wanted them, a couple of different places wanted them. And Nixon, of course, being like Nixon, he was like, I have to be as strategic as possible. Like, where will this benefit me the most? And I think he's trying to curry favor with everybody in DC. And like, he sort of comes up with this rationale where he's like, no, the DC zoo is good because it's the national zoo. It's for the country. So it should be in DC. It should be representative of this. And also to remind everybody that I'm awesome and I opened up relations with China and I'm a genius, et cetera, et cetera.
And everyone should love me.
Everyone should love me.
News
no
breaks.
matter what. Yeah, yes. And it's funny, I had a hinkling where I was like, I wonder if he mentions this in any of the Nixon tapes. You do know that Nixon was impeached, or actually technically didn't get impeached. He resigned before he was impeached. But you do know about the tapes, I assume, yes?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm just making fun of you now. Yes, I understand. You do know about it.
Oh, sorry. No, I don't know about them. Tell me everything.
So on the Nixon tapes, I was like, I wonder if there's any mentions of pandas.
Did you look it up?
I did look it up. So there's 2 specific conversations that I found. One of them is when the pandas arrive, he's talking to Pat. It's not that interesting.
So excited. But no. Doesn't matter.
Where he's just like, it's a conversation with him and Pat, where he's just like, hey, Pat, how did it go? Did the pandas arrive safely? Sorry, I couldn't get out of work. And she's like, oh, yeah, they were great. I can't do a Pat Nixon impression, but she's just like, yeah, it was great. The crowds
sounds
are big
just
or
like
whatever.
him.
Yeah, she's just like, oh,
a lady.
Yes, my husband, great. He's like, oh, yes, pandas, panda. I'm Pat Nixon. It's sort of this very like cheeky, it's like only like a minute and a half of tape I could find on YouTube where he's just sort of like, it's very like, oh, sorry, I couldn't get away from work, but I just wanted to check in and see, just checking in on his wife to make sure that, it all went well and he was excited about it. He's being supportive. The second conversation is Richard Nixon calls the Washington Star's foreign editor Crosby Noyes. And basically, this is his first ploy to try and get the press to get excited about the fact that he's brought these pandas down.
Oh, wow.
And so he's really excited to talk to them about it. And he's like, the pandas, is like, I negotiated this, whatever, like the pandas are coming. They were talking about trying to get it in San Diego, but, we wanted it to come to DC, so it's going to come to DC. And then he's having this conversation with the guy about, he's like, oh, because pandas famously in captivity, they're very difficult to get them to mate.
Yeah.
So he's having this conversation.
Don't watch.
They don't watch. Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing. I'll get into that. So he's talking about this guy. He's just like, in China, the pandas don't know, and if they're born in captivity, they don't know how to procreate. So they have to show them these videos about how it's done, so they don't get confused.
Nixon did not talk about panda porn.
He does talk about the panda porn.
I don't know why that makes me so happy.
It's great. And so all I kept thinking was, is like, did he watch the panda porn and he's telling him about it? Which then I had in my mind like a whole scene of like Richard Nixon in China, like talking to the zookeepers, and they're like, check this out. Like, look at this panda porn that we've got. Right. And he's just sitting there with his whole staff, like
and
watching
he
panda
secretly
porn.
loves it.
Oh, yeah. And then it's just like he's probably just sitting there and he's just like he's laughing about it. And then he like nudges like the person next to him and he's just like, hey, Haldeman, look, it's Kissinger. Like
I
just
like
talking
this.
shit.
You should write fan fiction about the Nixon era and make it sexy.
Sexy. Anyway, so it's this big deal. So I was reading about this and I was like, okay, that's cool. That's fun. And then I'm like, I don't really know much about pandas. I don't know how much you know about pandas, but
not much.
So I'm trying to think of like how I even proceed here without offending anybody. But like pandas are just, they're so kind of dumb and weird and like insane. And like the more I kept reading about them, I'm like, what? Why? I don't understand. And they're hilarious. But this is the thing. They're funny as shit.
Yeah.
So pandas. So
it's gonna be okay.
It's gonna be okay. I'm just trying to think of like how I get all this information out. So in short, most of this has to do with like pandas in captivity, but also this is like a combination of stuff. So I'll get into some of the stuff that only happens in captivity versus how it is in the wild. But just generally speaking, pandas, they kind of don't do shit except sit around and eat bamboo for like sometimes like 14 hours a day.
What?
And not at once. So what they'll do is they'll wake up, they'll eat bamboo for like 4 hours straight. And then they'll be like, okay, I'm tired. And then they'll go to sleep for like 2 hours. And then they'll wake up and be like, oh, I haven't had bamboo in like 2 hours. And then they'll just eat bamboo for like another 4 hours and then go back to sleep. So that's all they're doing. Most of the day is eating bamboo and then just sleeping and then waking up.
Sleeping? Sounds amazing.
Yeah. These creatures are highly relatable in the modern age, by the way.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, but they have like, they have sharp teeth and like their digestive systems are made for, so they're carnivore, or they're omnivores, they're carnivores. Like they're supposed to be eating like meat and stuff. And I guess there's like whatever. There's sometimes there's like little stuff that's on the bamboo, but 99% of their diet is bamboo.
So they could eat meat, but they choose not to.
It's like, sciencey people will sort of like get into the bamboos about that. But more or less, yes, they sort of just prefer to eat bamboo and that's what they eat. They do eat other stuff occasionally, but most of it's bamboo.
Wow.
And again, like, so I was like, why? And basically it's like, well, where they were in China, there was just a bunch of bamboo. So they're like, oh, we could hunt or we could just eat all this bamboo stuff that's directly in front of us. And so I guess we'll just do that.
I would have done that too.
It's just the most like bachelor thing of all time too, because it just like reminds me of like Sarah's out of town for like a night or like two. I just become like, I'm like, I don't really need to get food. I'll just eat whatever's in the house. And then I'm eating like cucumbers for 4 days straight with feta cheese.
Handfuls of cheese. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. So I'm like, the bamboos just do that as a species.
Yeah. Wow.
They're like, whatever, it's
the
easy.
Bamboos?
I'll just eat this.
The bamboos.
I'm sorry, the pandas. The pandas.
I was gonna say I'm a bamboo. No, I'm a panda.
The pandas do this just as a way of life. So remember when I said that pandas don't do shit?
Yeah, they don't. Do they?
That's actually a lie. No.
Oh.
Literally, most of what they do is shitting. That's.
Go on. I just like how I like how you presented that information to me.
It's called a plant and a payoff.
It's beautiful.
So, pandas shit all the time. They even shit in their sleep. I've seen videos of this. Yeah, pandas will be just like, with like the what did we have last time with like the cap and like the single candle and shitting while they're doing that.
Yep. With their little nightcap that they blow.
Yep. Nightcap, shitting and snoring.
So much.
Like I said, so they're omnivores, and so their digestive tract is very short, and they're only eating bamboo 99% of the time, which means that it's just fiber. It's just like 90% of what they're eating is just fiber. So just eating fiber all the time, and they have short digestive tracts, which means they can only keep shit in their body for like a short period of time before the nutrition's absorbed. So what this averages out to is a giant panda will shit every 15 to 20 minutes.
That's awful. It's like
that's 2 shits for every episode of like, I don't know, Young Sheldon, whatever you're watching. If you're watching an episode of Young Sheldon,
how
a panda
dare
shit
you?
Twice. In one day, a panda will literally shit up to 40 times a day.
What?
Yeah. If pandas wore pants, they'd just be shitting them nonstop.
Hey, just like you always pack an extra pair.
Love it.
Underwear. That was that
pants
night
shitting underwear.
I almost peed my pants.
That's right. I forgot about that.
I was trying to walk in New York and what did you say? You said something that made me almost...
We were talking about packing for a vacation, a trip. In this case, it wasn't a vacation, but it was every time I pack for a trip, I always bring extra pants shitting underwear in the unlikely event that I shit my pants, which has never happened, by the way.
And he just kept bringing it up, and I was tired after a long day at the booth, and I had to sit on the ground and hold perfectly still to keep myself from peeing my pants. All because you just kept saying underwear. That. I've never done it.
Yes, I've never done it either, but I'm paranoid, so like I brought. So pandas, if they ever travel, just double the amount of days that you're going, all pants shitting underwear, but times 40 even. I don't know. Which led me to another thought, which is, why are the Charmin bears, the toilet paper with the Charmin bears? Yeah. Why aren't they panda bears? Why are they not panda bears?
True.
If you work for Charmin, please call me, because I have an ad campaign for you that's about pandas shitting themselves, and the only thing that will save them all day is the Charmin wipes. Anyway.
Beautiful.
It's strange. It's $1 million campaign.
You're in LA. Go pitch it somewhere.
Exactly. If anybody, like I said, if anybody that works for Charmin is listening, please let me know. Anyway, so, I got into some of it about, it doesn't really matter. Some of the details about like why they're able to, but they have like special gut bacteria that that helps them with their digestive aid and all that. So they've like adapted to it essentially. So it's not because like they're genetically made some way. They just have developed some flora or something in their guts that can do it.
Crazy.
Yeah. So the other thing is, so pandas are weird. They're funny. They're shitting themselves and sleeping and eating food that has no nutrition. It's basically like they're just sitting around eating Doritos all day. But they're important for China.
Okay. In
China, you probably heard this. So Panda owns all the pandas. I'm talking about giant pandas specifically. The
Panda owns all the pandas.
I keep saying panda. China owns all the pandas in the world.
Even the ones they give away?
Yes. So, which in and of itself, I'm like, how does a country just own an animal? How do you own a species? I've never heard of like anything. Like, we don't even, the bald eagle is like the symbol of America, but like, I don't think we like own the bald eagles.
We don't. Nature does.
Nature does. I feel like very like, settlers coming in to meet with Native Americans. And I'm like, how do you own land? I'm like, how do you own animals? Like that doesn't even make sense.
We make the rules around here. That's what China says.
Yeah. So apparently it's like, it really just comes down to the fact that pandas are only native to China, obviously.
Oh, wow.
And so because of that, China's like, well, yeah, we cornered the market on this. We got it. And they have used this to their benefit. So initially it's panda diplomacy, which was like they gave them out as gifts to people as a way to try and, grease the wheels or just like be nice to somebody and sort of have them like you more.
Or to get like a symbol of China and their culture out to the world too.
That's the other thing too. Yes, that's going to be my next point. So it's also good PR for Panda because it's great. You had it right.
China, good PR for China.
So also like when these pandas came to DC, people like lost their minds. Like they were just like, oh my God, this is the coolest thing ever. Like pandas are so adorable. Like they're so funny and they're iconic looking, right? And they're very cute and they're goofy and they fumble around and like they're hilarious. Like they're fun to watch. So it's like benefit for everybody. Like Nixon got to be like, check it out. I like opened up relations to China and I got this thing that's cuddly and likable and everyone loves it. China all of a sudden is like, okay, we're not this terrifying, revolutionary communist country. We also have like cool bears that are awesome and fun.
The
So
poop
it's like
constantly.
the poop constantly, highly relatable to Americans. And so it's like this mutually beneficial thing. But what ends up happening so it's sort of gone in these phases of this panda diplomacy. So initially it was gifts that they were giving. And eventually China starts to realize after a few years where they're like, like we've been giving them out to places. People are like, these pandas are really, really popular. People like eat this up. Like they get really excited and obsessed with them. So I think what we got to do is we got to start a panda leasing program because we're just giving these things away for free.
Smart.
Right? So like, you got like a world leader. He goes onto the lot and he sees all these pandas and he's just like, man, this thing's beautiful. I love it. And then the salesman, he comes out from his office and he's like, saw you looking at that panda over there. Yeah. Yeah.
It could be
you
yours.
And that panda look great. It could be yours. What do I got to do to send you home with a panda today?
$200 down.
Yeah. And, he's kind of like, I don't know, or, I shouldn't, I need to discuss. He's like, I really love this one, but I got to discuss financial decisions with my wife or like, Congress, whoever.
Congress, yeah.
Congress before I make any rash decisions. And
Parliament.
The guy is just, Parliament. And the salesman's just kind of like, oh, wow, I thought you were a man. I didn't realize I was talking to a bitch. And then he gets really mad.
Okay. Historic.
And he's just like, what? No, I'm not. I'm a man. I don't care. I'll sign this lease. I'll take whatever. I'm in charge. I'm the big boy. I'm the eldest son. I get to wear the big boy pants. I don't care what it is. I'm just going to sign the contract. And then now you're host,
Wow.
They got the undercoat. They've got the extended warranty. They got everything. They just signed it away. It doesn't matter because
it's
they're
like
desperate
I'm
to have
there
this
right
panda.
now.
Exactly. And so a giant panda lease typically is 10 years long. 10 years.
What?
Guess how much it costs?
So, how much?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. You have a question. Go ahead. Yeah, go ask.
No, so like all the pandas we see are just being leased from China?
Yes. They're being leased. They're on loan. They're on loan and they're being leased. They don't own. They're not buying to own. They're just renting them out. So for one panda per year, you have to pay China $1 million. So it's $1 million every year. Just out the door that you're paying the Chinese for the pleasure of the pandas company, $1 million. And these things, as I mentioned before, they're worse than BMWs. They're just going to break down every 5 minutes. They're just shitting everywhere, and they got to eat like 40 pounds of bamboo every day.
And bamboo does not grow where you have them.
They grow on trees, so yeah, right.
It grows in stalks. You know what I'm thinking? Yeah. Raccoons are native to only the U.S. I think we should do this with raccoons.
You
and I should do this.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret, actually. The reason that I said I was reading a bunch of other stuff before I got to this tab, I was actually reading about raccoons specifically.
Weird.
Yeah, and then people kept saying trash panda, and then I randomly thought about pandas, and then I was like, oh, this is funnier. I might go back and I did have one tabbed up on raccoons. That has a funny story too. Me too. I learned some interesting facts. Anyway, whatever. Well, I'll probably do that at another point. But
okay.
So basically, it's $1 million a year to have a panda, and of course, everyone's trying to mate, trying to get them to mate, right? So, and I'll get into all of that in a second. But if you're lucky enough to have a baby, right, which is also very hard for the reasons I'll get into, so that means you have to have a couple. And if you have a baby, if you're lucky, if they have a baby, then you got to pay another fee to the Chinese government. Or whatever, the organization that's in charge of, panda
it's the government.
Diplomacy.
Let's face it.
It's all sort of, part of the government. You got to pay, if you have a baby that's born in your zoo, you have to pay a fee of $400,000 annually to them for having this baby. So basically, which is basically the same as having a baby in the United States, except, and you don't have insurance, so you can't cover it.
Yeah.
So basically, if you have a couple who has a baby, you are now paying the Chinese government $2.5 million every year just to have them.
Why? So why would you even want to breed them if that's the case?
Great question. One, because they're endangered.
Oh, right.
But two,
right.
because people love them.
That's
huge
true.
crowds. People love
baby pandas.
They're good for business.
That's true.
And so the part of, so again, I was trying to not read for like 50 hours about this because there's so much about panda breeding and like So I'm just going to do the general Cliff's Notes. And I think I'll just say up front, there's a lot of stuff that's ridiculous and there's a lot of stuff that's kind of like unfortunate. But generally speaking, it seems like there's two buckets of how this works, which is, and it's taken them a long time to kind of figure this out, which is like pandas breed one way in nature. And then they tried to sort of, and they weren't really taking that into account as well as they should have while they were in captivity. And it took them a lot of years to figure out like how to sort of line all that up. Is the extremely short explanation of what happens here.
Okay.
So, fun facts. This is clear for all of it. So, for example, one of them is they draw huge crowds, and pandas, as it turns out, don't like having sex in front of huge crowds of people.
I was right when I said don't watch.
Yeah, don't watch.
I mean, neither do I. But
no, yeah, I don't either. I mean, I'm not here to kink shame anybody, but if you're a panda,
but I'm not.
I'm not into that either. Maybe we're kink shaming pandas. Who knows? But I can't remember which zoo it was. One of the zoos, speaking of COVID, one of the zoos where during COVID, like attendance had gone down. That's randomly when the pandas had managed to conceive, because they were in the theories that they're like, oh, I think people weren't staring at them and tapping on the glass or whatever.
Oh my God.
So
that's hilarious.
Yeah. Bizarre. So additionally, a female panda can only conceive for more or less like, it's like 48 hours, or it's basically like 2 days.
What?
It's like 2 to 3 days out of the entire year. That's how small the window is.
How are they still alive? How do they still exist?
That's the thing. Yeah, people are like, it's funny. There's all this stuff online. It's a joke, clearly. It's not like, I don't think people who get this into animals don't like animals, but it's like a fake joke where people are like, we should just let pandas die because they're so dumb. Because they're just like, how are you so bad at life?
How have you survived this long?
Yeah, it's clearly tongue in cheek. People don't get mad about this. Like, people are like, just they're joking about it. But and it's funny because there's all this video. Again, you can see videos of like females being like, dude, just like basically doing the panda equivalent of like spreading their legs and being like, give it to me.
For just 2 days.
For 2 days. And a lot of the male pandas are like, huh? Sorry. Like, I can't press pause on the game I'm playing. It's online gaming. Like, can you like,
and by online gaming, you mean it's just pooping
and eating bamboo. Don't forget, this bamboo, it's not what their body needs either. So like, they're not getting all the nutrients that they need. So like, they're malnourished on some level, because so they're just like, it's like, just eat a steak. It'll help you.
Eat a steak, get pregnant.
Yeah. So that's pretty hard. Speaking of hard, another problem.
Oh,
pandas have basically a micro penis. And I'm
Okay.
I'm not here to dick shame. This is just the facts. A panda's penis is about 3 centimeters long, or basically under a quarter of an inch.
That's little.
Yeah. So if pandas could drive, they would have the flashiest sports cars or the most lifted trucks ever. That's how tiny the wieners are.
Wow. Poor guys.
So it's a delicate dance to try and get them to, this is why they got to watch panda porn sometimes when they're in captivity, to try and understand better.
Oh my. Okay. I just can't believe they still exist. That's all.
It's baffling, right? So during pregnancy, so if they do get pregnant, it's hard to see because females produce progesterone whether or not they're pregnant. So you can't even look at it hormonally necessarily to see. And even with an ultrasound, it's really tough because the embryo is like, it's basically the size of an eraser, the fetus, and it's hidden behind layers of fat, bladder, and a stomach full of bamboo.
That's kind of similar to humans sometimes. Like,
is it?
One time, like if the placenta, like my friend went in for a scan when she was pregnant, and they couldn't see the baby because the placenta was in front of it.
Yeah.
And they were like, sorry, come back.
Yeah. And so this happens with
Terrifying.
pandas a lot. Yeah.
Wow.
And pregnancies can last from anywhere from 3 to 5 months because the embryo may not embed in the uterine lining immediately after conception. So it also just like takes a while, even once
floats around.
Yeah. Like I think you can only get, I think if I remember correctly, it's like in the spring they can get pregnant, but it won't actually happen until the summer.
Weird.
Yeah, so I'm just imagining this embryo just shitting and eating bamboo on its way down to the uterine lining because it's just taking forever.
What a life.
Yeah. And so in the slim chance that they do get pregnant, the babies are really, really tiny. They're really tiny.
They come out little, huh?
They come out very little. And just to give you a point of reference, I think like I could be wrong with this, but from what I could see, it's like a human is about 20 times bigger than a baby, like when it's a newborn. And then elephants are like a couple hundred in relation to them. A panda is 900 times bigger than its baby.
So like, what would that be for us if I had a baby and it came out like an inch tall?
It's got to be 900 times smaller than you. Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think to do the reverse math.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Yeah. So, and a lot of this has to do with the fact that like they're just eating bamboo all the time. They're not eating like something that the baby needs to get to like grow and get big.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like, I'm very worried about pandas. I'm like,
pissed
what are you
off
guys
at them.
doing? You're not taking care of yourself.
Just eat.
Just eat.
Do more.
And I'm sorry for panda shaming, but
it's making me mad, honestly.
It's making me upset for their Okay, so the last thing I'll tell you. So what's very common too is that if a panda gives birth to twins, she'll just be like, yeah, no, I don't need this other one. I don't need a duplicate. I only need one. I already got one. Why do I need a backup?
Like rats?
Yeah, they'll just be like, whatever. Which with
eat
rats,
does she eat it?
No, I think she just is like, bye. She just like doesn't take care of it.
That's insane.
It is. It's mostly insane because they're so endangered, right? Not that the panda understands this, but that's why it's unfortunate. No. With rats, I don't care, whatever. Disgusting. But
can I tell you a quick story?
Yes.
I'll be fast. My sister had hamsters. My sister had 3 hamsters as a kid, and one of them had babies because we didn't know that one was a boy. And anyway, impregnated another one, and my sister was like, "What are these things?" She came home one day and there were babies, and then the next day, she couldn't find the babies.
Oh no!
And so I'm probably telling this story wrong. I wish maybe she'll correct me, but she started digging through. She's like 7, by the way. Whoa. She starts digging through and she finds the heads of all the babies.
Oh my God! This explains a lot about you and your family, which I really like.
This isn't the first time we've had a rodent eat its whole litter in my house. So anyway,
that's awesome.
That's my story. Go on.
Anyway. Wow. Okay.
I derailed that so
No,
hard.
it's okay. It's not even derailing. I'm just picturing it in my head now.
Yeah, it's gross.
So anyway, I kind of said this before, but like the panda breeding thing in captivity is like they don't want to be exhibitionists. Like they're not necessarily. So at one point also, but they realized they used to keep the males and the females separate.
Oh.
And then be like, oh, it's breeding time to bring in the male. And pandas are like, I don't know her. I just met her. Like, I'm not going to just bang her. Like, what the hell is this? There's all this like...
They have to have a relationship?
There's all this like pheromone type stuff that happens and like scents and like things that they have to put on. So it's like everything just takes forever with a panda. So it took them a long time to figure that out. So they're getting better about it. And there's like, there's more panda pregnancies these days than there were like in the 70s and 80s. But so the other part that's interesting is like China's power has grown obviously quite a bit over the past like 10, 20 years. Mm-hmm. And so now pandas, so this is sort of like their third stage. So the first stage was the gifts, then it's the lease. And now they're like these tools for like flexing soft power. And they've become like these ambassadors, like it's unofficial. And remember how we were talking about like civilization? It's basically like the same thing. Where it's like the game. Yeah. So they're like
getting a culture victory.
Your culture victory. Like now you have panda ambassadors in your country and you have good relations and like they can trade. And you don't want to piss off like a seafaring nation. Yeah, I know. We should be sponsored by them at this point.
Please, Sid Meier.
Yeah, please give us money. Anyway, so they basically... So there's these researchers at the University of Oxford, and they start to like kind of put in these whatever stuff into like a spreadsheet, and they're looking at like China's trade deals, and they're looking at pandas, and they're looking at like they start to notice like a correlation of things, and they're like, oh, interesting. China's international trade deals kind of line up with some of these panda leases. So for example, China had a trade relationship with Norway. I think salmon was the big thing that they were trading with them because they wanted to bring them to China, and things were good and they were doing well. And then in 2010, the Nobel Peace Prize goes to a Chinese dissident.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, and the next thing you know, Scotland in the Edinburgh Zoo is like, hey, we just got pandas. This is really cool. Funny enough, Edinburgh and Scotland Scotland has salmon, and they also have like Land Rovers and stuff.
Wow.
And the Chinese are like, that's apparently one of the things that like the burgeoning middle class wanted. And so the next thing you know, they're basically like, China's like, yeah, sorry, like Norway, we don't like you anymore. And now Edinburgh is the zoo that has like these awesome pandas, and things are going great there. Yeah, they're like, they don't get to sit at the cool table. Norway doesn't get to sit at the cool kids table anymore.
Because they gave an award to a dissident.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Or I should say, this is speculation. This is not like an official stance on anything. And there's no actual, people can feel free to refute this. It just might be like a thing, but it just looks like.
Fill in the blanks.
You can fill in the blanks if you want, I should say. And then in 2009, there was a giant panda that was in DC and its time was up, and they tried to extend its lease. And China was like, no, we're not doing that. Why? Because, again, not why. We can't say officially because there's no official declaration of saying the reasons why. But perhaps coincidentally, Obama had recently met with the Dalai Lama. And the U.S. had made an arms deal with Taiwan.
Yeah, we did. That pissed them off.
China can giveth a panda, and China can taketh away.
Because they own all of them.
They own them all. And they've got the racket on it. And last year, so I'm almost done, so I'll wrap it up. So pandas that were in DC, there was a few that were left. They left last year. And currently the only place, if I'm not mistaken, that you can see pandas in the United States that's left is in Atlanta.
Really?
Yeah, and there's 4 of them.
They have a huge zoo.
Yeah, so there's a lot of big, so they got a big airport. Speaking of another airport, that would be a good airport to be trapped in because it's very large.
That's a fine airport.
That's a good one. And there's only like a family of 4, and apparently the lease is set to expire in 2024 this year of these pandas. So,
are they going to renew it?
Well, I don't know if history is, historically, if we're like looking at the past, right? Like Chinese American relations haven't been great, and they're not getting much better.
No.
So in theory, there's a worry. There's no way to prove this. It's going to happen. No one actually knows, but there's a fear that they might just be like, yeah, cool, Atlanta's done. We're gone. Bye. And then we won't have pandas anymore. Yeah. And then we can't be a seafaring nation anymore. We won't get the technology.
We won't have that tech. We won't have that. They're going to get a culture victory over us.
Culture victory. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
they're going to start wearing your blue jeans and listening to your pop music. I think that's what the leaders say. It's like a canned response every time. Yeah. They're like, they're listening to your music and wearing your blue jeans. And it's like Gandhi saying it. And you're like, what?
What? Yeah. Right.
I'm going to stop talking about Civ.
No, I brought it up.
Go on.
The last thing I'll say is they get packed up in these planes, and they're called FedEx Panda Express planes.
Oh my gosh.
And they have like a giant picture of like a panda on the side. It's like a whole thing.
What?
Again, I was going to go into all of that, but I was like, I've already gone too long.
I don't know what to say. I had no idea. I thought pandas just were whoever's had them,
No. And so like at the beginning of this, I was like, oh, pandas are dumb. And by the end of this, I'm like, no, actually, humans are still the dumbest. Because we're like, there's this thing, and we're like, oh no, other country, please don't take away this animal that you now own, because that's a thing. Like, we want to keep these things that shit and eat bamboo and just like fall over with their micro penises all day long because it makes us money. And they're like, no,
we don't care about human rights. We want pandas.
Because you gave somebody else an award and we don't like, and you start thinking about humans and you're like, we're the dumbest creatures in existence. Yeah. Like, we were a mistake.
Should have stayed in the trees.
Should have stayed in the trees. It's so much of modern life is so stupid. And the pandas just sort of got wrapped up in it by accident, like unbeknownst to them. They have no fault in this. They're just like, what do you want from us?
They're the cutest, dumbest things. Wow.
Who shit all the time, just constantly
all
shitting.
Day. It's like having a newborn. That's like having a newborn, but way worse.
Yeah, but it'll never grow out of it. It'll just continue shitting.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What anyway, that's world? My top. I had no idea.
I didn't know either. I was laughing.
I
was dying laughing.
Because Pat Nixon was like, "What's that?"
Was like, "Oh, that's so cute."
That's cute.
I mean, I think you could make an argument that they might have come anyway. Like, it seems like that was sort of what they were starting to use as a tool for diplomacy.
Yeah, but what a huge, like,
But yeah,
giving it as a gift, like back in the day, like if I'm
yeah,
talking about like 100, 200 years ago, like an emissary from somewhere shows up and they give you something that you can only get in that country.
yeah,
That was a huge sign of like, hey, I'm willing to
yep,
have an open talks and trade with you.
yep.
It's big.
It's crazy.
What would we
Anyway,
bring?
what would I
Raccoons.
bring? I would bring a closed tab, hopefully.
On a platter, please. Here you go.
Please
Take my
tabs.
country's export.
And
Wow.
as such, we should go. We're running long again. So
Are
should
we
go.
running long again? Maybe we should just do this.
Somebody went long. That was me.
It was me too.
I
went
can't
40
stop
minutes.
once you start laughing. I'm like, well, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah, because you're funny.
Hopefully the audience is laughing and they won't mind. That
Stop
just keep
being
going along.
funny.
Okay.
Let's get super serious and just talk true crime like everybody else.
Yeah, true crime. Anyway, I'm ready to, again,
Yeah.
I have another 15 tabs that I opened up from this one specifically.
Mhm.
Okay, you should
Me
do the
too.
countdown this time. I think I did it
All
last
right.
time.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
3, 2, 1. Close out.
Close. I think that sound effect should be just shit spraying everywhere out of a panda's butthole.
Ew! Yeah, that's a good idea. Or like the sound of an airplane. Nope, no airplane crashes. Never mind. Yeah. What he
You
said.
wanted me to make a 9/11 joke there, but I didn't. I could see it in
I
your
set
face.
you up for it. I threw the ball and you did not. You
I
did
should probably
not
stop
hit it.
before someone just puts like a super cut together of me making 9/11 jokes. I don't know. Anyway, yes, closed. That felt good. Although I did have a good time learning about pandas. Pandas are funny.
They're so weird. I can't believe how inept they are. Like
They're hilarious.
they're just big and
hilariously
roly
weird.
poly and inept, and they can't mate, and they can't have kids, and they can't eat.
Just shitting and eating all the time.
Well, thanks. That was really interesting.
Yeah. You want to go to the tabs? Or listener tabs?
More tabs. Yeah, let's do
More
listener
tabs.
tabs.
You want to do the first one?
Yeah. I went first this week, so I'll go first with this.
Okay.
My listener email is from Oscar, and he does not tell us where he's from, but he
Oscar
says
from the Academy, let's just say.
Yep. It's your season, Oscar. And boy, oh boy. Anyway, after watching WALL-E, I wanted to hear the opening song of the movie, that being Put On Your Sunday Clothes, composed by Walter Matthau, Michael Crawford, and Louis Armstrong. The rendition heard in WALL-E was taken from the Hello Dolly musical, released in 1969. I bet you don't know anything about musicals, so I'm really glad
I don't know anything about them.
I found that out about 2 weeks ago. Today I finished reading the wiki article. Turns out, said musical had finished its production about a year before, but it wasn't released because a contract Fox had signed with the folks in charge of the original Broadway show and was not supposed to be released until 1971. Oh, I skipped the whole part where they say that Hello Dolly was released in 1969 and they write, nice. And it was not supposed to be released until 1971, not nice, or until the show on Broadway closed. Wanting to get their movie's worth, Fox paid for an early release of the movie, finally publishing it on December 18th. Funny thing, most reviews of Hello Dolly today reflect those of the past when it first hit the theaters, with highbrow critics not really enjoying it due to more technical complaints or casting choices, and general audiences ranking it an enjoyable film for a movie night. Really like your podcast. I hope to organize my tabs by the end of February. Godspeed.
It's never going to
So
happen.
I guess, what did this mean? So I got hung up on
I think
1969.
I think it didn't want to cannibalize the business.
Oh, okay. Interesting. I've never seen Hello Dolly.
I've seen it. In fact, if you're interested in learning more about Hello Dolly, go listen to the Musical Splitting podcast, where we did do an episode of Hello Dolly. I can tell you all my thoughts there. And we do go into some of this. I don't quite remember all the details, but I do remember that we do talk about this specifically. Yeah.
Well, cool. You don't even have to open a tab. Just go listen to that.
Yeah, there you go. Go listen to that other podcast.
Okay.
Well,
what
thank you,
email
Oscar.
do you have?
Let's see. This email is from Veronica from San Francisco.
Hey,
Hi.
neighbor.
Hey, neighbor, former neighbor for me, but still in spirit. Hi, the tab I closed is from Medium about how Bugs Bunny was inspired by Clark Gable's role in the movie It Happened One Night, where he played a fast-talking, carrot-chewing wise guy. I didn't know that.
Interesting.
Even the iconic line, "What's up, Doc?" comes from the movie.
What?
The popularity of Bugs Bunny is how we all came to attribute the idea that rabbits eat carrots, even though they rarely encounter them in the wild, and shouldn't eat too many of them since it's a high-sugar vegetable. Of course, this led me down a rabbit hole because suddenly I realized that there was also iconically think of Peter Rabbit with carrots, even though that story came out way before the Clark Gable movie, and it turns out carrots weren't even mentioned in Peter Rabbit. He eats lettuces, French beans, radishes, and is looking for parsley when old Mr. McGregor shows up. The illustration has Peter Rabbit with a carrot, but I have no idea if that was an originally published illustration, and this new search inquiry will be replacing my original tab to read during my next breastfeeding session for my 3-month-old, if I actually remember. As a new mom, I thank you both for bringing random articles and trivial knowledge back into my life when I'm too tired to think while I figure out this parenting thing. Very excited for more episodes to come. Best, Veronica of Team Private Browsing, even though Instagram still seems to bring up ads relevant to things I've researched. Well, congratulations on the new baby.
Yeah, 3 months. That's you're still in the thick of it. That first year is insane.
Yeah.
So I've been there. Good luck. You'll come out of it. All I did was listen to podcasts.
I was going to say, we'll be there with you every step of the way.
Yeah. At like 2 a.m. when you're like, how are you hungry again? I just fed you.
Yeah.
We'll be there.
We'll be with you in spirit.
Yeah.
I'm
your baby.
Yeah, right. We're going to get to see this child grow. We're going to be like, it's Veronica's baby. And he's going to be like in college. I don't know this child's gender.
Yeah.
But the child will be, at 18 and going to college and being like, I'm a genius because my mom played me this podcast or they'll just have severe ADHD. I don't know.
They'll have severe ADHD and laugh way too much.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway, thanks, Veronica.
Anyway, thank you, Veronica. Congratulations again. If you guys have a tab that you'd like to submit that you read because we inspired you to close it, please send us an email to 500opentabs@gmail.com. That's 500 as in 500. And let us know who you are, where you're from, because as we always say, we love hearing where you're from. We like to know where our friends are throughout the rest of the country and world, and then give us a quick little breakdown of what it was, and of course, a link to the article.
That about wraps it up for us. Thank you for listening. Kaveh?
Yeah, if you guys didn't get a chance to see us at Emerald City Comic-Con, I will probably be, I don't know, by the time we're recording this, we don't quite know, but we might be at WonderCon.
In Anaheim.
We're just going to put out good vibes and assume that we will be at WonderCon in Anaheim.
Let's hope. You can come see us there. And you can also follow us at 500 Open Tabs on most social medias.
Yeah, and we also have a Discord. We have a link to that in our bio. That's been getting a little bit more poppin', which is fun.
Yeah.
A lot of fun things going on. Good community. Of course, I'm at Covetarian on Twitter. I deleted Twitter from my phone because it was taking up a lot of space and I meant to re-download it and I just never did.
Yeah. It's pretty great. So
I'm on it less, but I'm still on it technically. I might download it at some point. It doesn't seem like I can get away with not having it, but I'm at PermaFriends on Instagram. And then go ahead.
I'm Hannah Hillam on everything, at Hannah Hillam.
Yeah.
Struggling through this ending.
It's okay. Please, as always, rate the podcast. Tell your friends.
Josie. Oh,
well, also
sorry.
stay Josie. Yes.
Tell your
friends.
Tell your friends. Therapist.
Tell your therapist. Tell your psychic. Tell everybody. Tell them to follow the podcast. Tell them to subscribe. Tell them to give us a good rating. If you can write reviews. Blah blah blah. We've just turned into those like and subscribe, like and subscribe, like and subscribe.
Hit that like button.
Smash that like button. Sam Worrell.
Sam Worrell.
That was pretty good. That was an impressive one.
Thank you.
But go ahead. Now you can do your closing.
Stay Josie.
Stay Josie, everybody. Josies, we love you.